Josh Castle here, Versatile Trading. Here's a video that I promised you guys on Twitter. Now, a lot of people don't know much about me. I'm kind of just hidden, I'm a ghost. But a little bit about myself. I've been trading for about 8 to 9 months already, and I've had a lot of success just coming up my own strategy. And it's something that I really do recommend people doing is just finding their own trading style. Everybody's going to react differently to the market, and I say that a lot because everybody's psychology is different. Everybody's going to be reacting differently to certain outcomes of the market. So it's just very important that you find out what works best for you, whether you want to go long or short or scalp your way through a stock or, hold for the rest of the day. It really depends on who you are and the amount of discipline and patience that you have developed throughout the course of your trading career. I think it's just very important that in order to be successful and consistent, you got to be able to discipline yourself a ton, and you got to be able to have a lot of patience for this kind of thing. But going straight into the trade recap here, I am using this strategy that I developed on my own. I do use VWAP, a 50-day and a 200-day SMA, and I use them mostly as my entry levels and support levels, resistance levels, my profit taking points. It just really makes it simple. I also do a little bit of some technical analysis, whether they're my downtrend lines, my uptrend lines, my horizontal support and resistance lines. It all just varies on how the stock is looking, and so I can get a better idea of where the stock is headed, what kind of direction it's going to have, if it's going to have a specific rejection site, a specific bounce site. It's just yeah, it just keeps everything leveled. I really like this strategy. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. NKE, the Nike stock. This is a high price stock, but this strategy applies for any kind of price stock. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, hopefully you can learn something. Hopefully you can take something in for most of y'all that are barely starting to trade. Um, Go to your studies if you want to use this strategy. It's the 50-day, the 200-day, and the VWAP. And we'll go a little bit into more detail about what those can do and how they can help us trade and enter in accurate levels. I know a lot of people don't use indicators. They just trade patterns or they just trade support and resistance lines. But I think it's very important that you have some sort of indicator to indicate if things are going to be either going bullish or bearish. So NKE 1 minute chart. What we have here is a post-market gap up. I believe this happened on the 28th, and then we have continuation the day of, which is today. We have continuation that goes from 78.3, it looks like, to a high of 81. Now, this is a morning pop that downtrends, bounces off the 50-day SMA and the VWAP, and just continues on with the action. Let me just zoom up real quick. And I really hate this platform. I don't use it much to look at my charts. I use Thinkorswim to look at my charts, but the only reason why I'm using this is because it shows my entries. And I think it's very important that you see my entries so that you can see exactly what goes on through my mind and what I was thinking at certain locations, just stuff like that. So the minute that the downtrend ends, or the uptrend ends, it begins to downtrend and it goes below the 50-day SMA. Notice that this candle bar gets rejected. It's a candle bar that indicates a reversal due to the fact that the wick is longer than the body. This wick is letting us know that the buyers are getting rejected here. The sellers took control, they pushed it down, and it also gets rejected at the 50-day SMA, which is your short entry. I like to short things when they go below the 50-day SMA and they get rejected. I think it's a very good strategy as well, especially if you walk it down to either your VWAP or your 200-day SMA. Here you have two profit target locations. You can take profits here at the VWAP, and you can also take profits here at the 200-day SMA. That's what I like about being able to use this strategy. Lines are already set up for you. Now, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily like taking profits at these locations. I typically make these horizontal trend lines, and it gives me more of an accurate data based on price action, because a lot of people, they begin to have a big battle between the buyers and the sellers at these locations. So here's your support, which was also a resistance before we have that breakout happen. Lots of congestion happening around this resistance support area. So when we have the bounce here, I would have taken profits before the bounce actually happened. I wouldn't have taken profits here at the VWAP, especially because this candle bar goes all the way down, cuts through, and the next one does the same thing. I would have taken profits here instead of the VWAP. So beginning my short, I need a cross thing. So beginning my short at 80.42, I would have taken profits at 79.62. The rest, I would have let this got rejected once more. My 50-day SMA is going to be acting as my risk. Notice that initially my risk was here at 80.44. Now my risk moves out to be 80.24. So it's a 20-cent difference because the 50-day SMA is going down. That's another thing I like to use my SMAs for. I like to use them for risk areas. Also my VWAP, I like to use it as certain risk areas. It really just cuts down the work, and it gives me an accurate label, I guess, for the stock itself. So because it doesn't reach that area, I don't stomp out of my short. I still keep going, and then it gets rejected. It keeps continuing down. I wouldn't necessarily take profits here at the 200-day SMA because it just cuts through. My next point to be taking profits would definitely be the next support and resistance level. So it looks like this one's it. We have a rejection that happens here. And this is just way too damn choppy. I wouldn't really be able to tell if there's a resistance or a support line here. I'm basically just looking at these levels here. We have a wick and two bodies that match and part of a wick here. So that would be my next level, even though this candle bar ends up going below. But again, it's a reversal candle bar. Notice that the sellers got rejected here. The buyers actually took control, and we see a reversal happen. It's very important that you also study on the concept of candle bars, Chinese candle bars. I think that's what they're called. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's very important that you understand certain reversals, the psychology behind it, because being able to analyze the whole psychology in the market is kind of like what we do. It's the main objective of what we do in order to spot strength or weakness behind the stock, especially when it comes to technical analysis or your trend lines. So now that we covered the short talk, now let's go into the transition here. When the reversal takes place, we have a higher low, right? It goes from 79.41. The next low is 79.58. I'm looking at the bodies right now. If we were looking at the wicks, it'd be 79.51. It uptrends. It passes through the 50-day SMA and the VWAP. And then it comes back down and it bounces. This is a very significant level because this has three major support levels. Not only does it have the VWAP, but it has the 50-day SMA and the 200-day SMA that are all acting as support. This is a very strong support center. If you could buy here with minimum risk, that should be your target. Buy here with minimum risk. If it falls below, you would sell below your 50-day SMA. Remember, I like to use my 50-day SMA as a risk line. So if it falls below my 50-day SMA, I'm going to go ahead and sell. Notice that here we just have rejections happening on the 50-day SMA. And finally, I pick up some shares. I don't sell if it downtrends. I never do. I mean, my risk, I stay strictly to as close as possible to my risk level, and I stick to my game plan. It's very important that you stick to your game plan, because if you enter a trade without necessarily having a plan, you're going to be buying at whatever position. You're going to be selling at whatever position. You're going to be cutting profits too early. You're going to be increasing your risk and losing much more if you don't have a game plan. So it's very important. Tip of the day, make sure you always have a plan before you get into the trade. A lot of the times you think you have a plan because you know the direction of the stock, like, oh, this is actually going to be breaking out. But there's a total difference knowing the overall outcome of the stock than knowing your entry and your exit points and your profit taking points. Those are very vital pieces of information that should be included in your plan. Okay, so we have that bounce at that support center that has three indicators, very, very influential. Okay, here we have a higher low, so I know that this is actually uptrending. We have a pop, and I sell right before the candle bar begins to go low. I sell here at 80.34 from the position that I got it at 80.05, and then I sell here at 80.46. I left the trade in the middle. I had to go attend my son, like I was saying, but this ended up going below to 80.18, which was my risk level. If it cuts below the 50-day SMA, then I would definitely sell. and honestly, I'm not sure what happened here. But the main talk that I'm giving is this position that we see here. This is just a great piece of trade, a great setup with multiple indicators acting as support, higher lows, selling into the pops. Every time it pops, selling into the pops before it begins to top off. Here's a double top. Remember, double tops. If it doesn't pass the second time, it's going to get rejected. Secondary confirmation is key in the market as well. So write that down. Tip of the day as well. Secondary confirmation. We need 2 points of confirmation to indicate whether something's going to be able to make it or if it's just going to break. So, yeah, there goes NKE. Remember this setup, the VWAP, 50-day, 200-day SMA. And another thing, before I talk about the next trade, note this down. 50-day SMA, whenever it's on top of the 200-day SMA, it's considered bullish. So that's why we have that uptrend taking place. The minute that the 50-day SMA goes below the 200-day SMA, it's considered bearish. And we'll look at some more examples of that. But just remember that. Keep that in mind. If a lower SMA crosses on top of a bigger SMA, then that's considered bullish. If a 10-day was crossing over the 50-day and it was actually carrying this on top, which I don't have, you know, that's still bullish. And as a matter of fact, a 10-day SMA would actually be close and it would just be carrying this one. But yep, let me pause this. Okay, so here's the next trade that we're going to be looking at, GEMP. Now, this had some overextension happening post-market and pre-market. Post-market from yesterday and then pre-market from today. This had a lot of float rotation written all over it. Float rotation is basically when people begin to take profits, setting this stock down. Like I said, it was already overextended. As soon as the market opened, a lot of people just started selling, taking profits, and we see a major downtrend. And just look at how when the 50-day crosses below the 200-day SMA, it just reacts to it, and we have a power downtrend happening, and it's just beautiful. And then we get the reversal happening here. Once the transition happens, we see that pop through the 50-day SMA. It bounces, action continues, it bounces again, and then it just heads towards the 200-day SMA and the VWAP level where it gets rejected again. So this is the part that I traded, so I'll go into more detail on that, but I just want. Okay, so here's the area zoomed in. Notice that on my positioning, on my entry, I don't buy here at this pullback because most of the time when something crosses the 50-day SMA, it actually pulls back and gets rejected at a certain level before pulling back again and bouncing off the 50-day SMA. So I like to catch that second bounce. Again, that's my secondary confirmation that this is not a fake move or a trap move or whatever you want to call it. So it gives me the confidence boost. Once it starts building up again, that's when I buy again, and then I sell at the pop here and the pop there. This is a scalping move. I am not holding for a long period of time. I know that the VWAP is going to be my rejection site and my profit taking point, so I'm going to sell all the shares that I bought here on these two locations. And it was about 2,000 shares or so, and it's a good move. I mean, it goes from 962 to a high of 1020 where I sold it, and then 1010 where I sold the remainder. So it's a good amount of profit right there. Finally, it begins a downtrend. It begins to consolidate, so I'll pick up some more shares. Bad locations to pick it up, but I still get the shares required to make the secondary move. And the secondary move is just walking this up towards the 200-day SMA and the VWAP. Now, this is an important section. It is a strong rejection point, so I know that I have to sell some shares. That's why I have a bunch of locations that I have sold shares, because it's a pretty influential spot where you will get rejected. So I'll take some shares before the pop happens. Again, once the downtrend it gets rejected, I take some more profit here, but then it ends up passing, so I end up taking profits there. I thought it was going to bounce on the 200-day SMA, which it did. I got shaken out here. As soon as it crossed below, I ended up selling my shares. So yes, that's pretty much the strategy that I use using the SMAs. I like to catch on the secondary bounce, walk it up to a VWAP location or the 200-day for a stronger site where it can possibly either pass with strength if it does end up passing with volume, or a rejection site to begin my short. But yeah, now let's go ahead and talk about a different one. So let me go ahead and put pause. Okay, so here is the CVS stock, and this is just wonderful. The action was just great on this one. It really does show the strategy that I'm trying to show you guys. we have a strong downtrend. Now, most of these stocks I like to pick up with the SMAs already have strong downtrends that are overextended, and I like to pick up the reversal. Usually the reversal, I get confirmation when it gets picked up by the 50-day SMA, and then walks towards the 200-day SMA with VWAP in between. And this is just a perfect example right here. Notice that we have a downtrend. It finally gets picked up by the SMA here, and I'll go ahead and zoom up so we can see the action a little bit better. It gets picked up, it pulls back, and it bounces right on that 50-day SMA. It goes from 64.69 to VWAP at 65.09. This is your first profit target area. You begin your long here at 64.71. Take some profit here at VWAP where we see some consolidation. Finally, it does pull back on the VWAP where it continues on with strength, passes that 200-day SMA, and hits that point at 65.40 where it does a W formation and it goes to 65.54 area. Now, I didn't make that action, actually caught the other reversal, the short, but I just wanted to explain that because it's so important that you guys understand this concept. And it applies the same to shorting, just kind of like flipping your computer screen. You can actually see the short there as well and changing the colors of the bars. But I begin my short. Let's see, I buy here and I end up losing some right there. Let me actually just scroll to that location where I begin my short. So the minute that it crosses the 50-day SMA, I begin my short. Remember, whenever something crosses below the 50-day SMA, I like to short, especially if it has overextension, which it did, and it got rejected at this technical point, and it did not complete its W formation. We have a midpoint here. A lot of the time when we have a W formation, we actually see the secondary point reach that area where it got rejected initially, but this one did not reach, and the RSI, I know it's not up here, but the RSI was already being close to oversold, finally washing out here. So I'll begin my short at this location, 65.33, with a price target in mind at VWAP at 65.15. I know it's not volatile, but when you get a stock that has volatility that does the same thing, you get lots of reward. But yeah, this one, it's still the same thing, still the same concept, same strategy. Just understand it and then target those volatile stocks. Just be careful with them. They're very, very risky, but also very rewarding. So I begin to take profits here at that VWAP section, and then I add more onto my short at 65.15 where it gets rejected at VWAP, and I continue down. I take some profit at 65.02 because it's my next technical point. If I make a horizontal line, we can see that this area was where we had a bounce, the congestion happening on the VWAP section. We have a bounce here. And finally, I still had some shorts, some shares that I was shorting that passed above the 200-day SMA where I began to cover because it went with strength. So this was the reversal that was going to happen. And it ended up bouncing here at the 200-day SMA, shooting towards the 50-day SMA where it then gets rejected again. But this was just a good play, a good plan, beginning the short, taking profits here, adding more to my short position, taking profits at the next technical level. I thought this action would continue down onto either 64.95, which is this rejection site here where we have a flag formation happening, or the 64.84 where we have the bounce happening. So I thought we would potentially reach that area, but we didn't. We had a reversal that took place, gets rejected at the 200-day SMA, higher low, so continues on with its action. But overall, this was just a great stock. Look at the action. Look how it just stays below the 50-day SMA, finally getting picked up and targeting those technical indicators. Even with a technical resistance point that was pretty influential, it just hits that and begins its reversal where we could begin our short. So I could have actually began my short here with minimum risk. As soon as it completed the curl after the whole reversal, this would have been a good position to short with minimum risk. If it goes above, we would sell. But 65.52, we would begin taking profits at VWAP, or taking profits here at 65.28 VWAP, and lastly this position here. So now let's talk about the next stock. Okay, so here's the next stock that we actually apply the strategy to. Once again, it has a major downtrend. Once I have a feeling that or once I see, not a feeling because we don't gamble here, once I see that it has consolidated and it's continuing its growth, getting picked up by the 50-day SMA, with that secondary confirmation here at the bounce, that's when I begin. Now, I did buy a little bit too early. So when I bought right here, I did end up breaking even right here. Or I didn't sell my entire shares, but I took some out just in case it did not make the move. I know that this was headed for a bounce, so there wasn't much to worry about, but I like to have some sort of backup just in case. So I always have a backup plan. So we see that bounce take place. Once it crosses above again the 50-day SMA, pulls back, this is where I begin to pick up my shares. I pick up a lot right here. I sell my first here at the pop. Initially, I tried to sell it here at the 200-day SMA, but I got executed here below due to the spread. But when it hits that 200-day SMA, it pulls back. On that pullback, I'm not scared. I know things get rejected at certain levels. I know if they get rejected, but certainly they pull back, especially with this candle bar once again. It has a long wick to the downside, meaning the sellers got rejected, the buyers took control. Then we have this transition or this reversal take place with this candle bar. We finally have it break through the 200-day SMA with a long candle bar here. That's where I take my secondary profit. Now, I could have kept holding, but I ended up taking more profit here and calling it done with the trade. So probably from 28.99, so 29, selling at 29.19, 29.47, and 29.33. Now this is a low move. Again, once again, the market was pretty slow today, especially midday. This strategy only works midday, so that's why I'm only showing you the midday action of these strategies, because they only work midday. Obviously, if it was more in the morning, if there was like more volatility involved and liquidity, then we'd be making higher moves. But these are based on the low period of the day, and they still work. You can still get up to like 1 point, especially if it's a volatile downtrend that has been way overextended to the bottom side. Sometimes they do make it up back to midpoint, and depending what price the stock is and how low it went, it will reach back to that midpoint, whether it's 3 to 4 points. So it's a good strategy to apply when you have a volatile downtrend. But notice that here we actually built a support, and so my built-in support will be here at 29.31, basically my minimum risk area. But I know that the 50-day SMA is getting ready to cross up above 200-day SMA, which once again, it's considered bullish. As soon as it crosses above, we start to see more action pick up, and we have a bounce that takes place from 29.40 to a high of 29.81, 40 cents to the upside. It breaks out at VWAP. So if I wouldn't have sold shares here, I could have sold shares at the VWAP, and once it begins to top off. And then here we have we could have shorted as well. It hits a downtrend, pulls back on the 50-day SMA. Minimum risk, if it goes up above, we sell. But this strategy works a lot, especially when the 200-day SMA is on the bottom. We take profits there. It goes from 29.51 to 29.17 and a lower point at 29. So that's a good amount of profit right there as well. But yeah, we're done talking about this stock. So now let's go ahead and just move on to the next one. I know I'm rushing through this, but this video is kind of long. Okay, so it actually looks like we are done with the stocks, although here is one. Here's a failed attempt. Now the reason why this one failed was it's too close to the downtrend. It didn't have enough time to consolidate and reset its momentum from the downside. So it's going to whiplash. It's just a move too close to the momentum of the downtrend. So that's why it fails as soon as it gets picked up by the SMA. I decided to buy here. And it's just there's not enough range. It was a bad position to buy because 200-day SMA is only about 15 cents apart, and then that VWAP is at 29.77 from that 29.35 mark that I bought. And once again, this action is just way too close to be picked up by the SMA. We could have bought here once it had consolidated a little bit better, broken the downtrend. But even then, it's not enough profit. I mean, 29.29, 29.61, so 30 cents. VWAP at 29.74. But it could get rejected instantaneously and still have more room to the downside, especially this support at 29.81, which it definitely ends up reaching. So we just got to be careful with where
we apply this, this is a great example of catching the move too early, not letting it settle down, and not letting the momentum reset. Whenever something downtrends strong, like we saw on the previous stocks, I really like the downtrend to start consolidating for a couple minutes, even if it takes up to an hour until the SMA finally picks it up after a long time. That gives you more odds that the SMA strategy will work, and we can then walk it up to either the VWAP or the 200-day SMA to take profits. So once again, guys, I am Josh Castle, Versatile Trading. Thanks for watching this video. If you are interested or did like this video, go ahead and just subscribe to my channel. There will be more to come, more videos explaining some trade recaps, some strategies that I have developed, back tested a lot of the times. But yeah, just shoot me a message as well if you have any questions, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you.